The 7th anniversary of September 11th, 2001 causes Americans everywhere to pause and reflect. Among them, there are many Muslims for whom life has never been the same. One of them joins me now. NECN is an MIT grad student who does outreach for the Boston chapter of the Muslim American Society. Nadeem, good to see you.
Nice to be here.
Why did you reached out to us. Why did you feel it was important for the Muslim American point of view to be heard on September 11th?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's important to stress that Muslims on this day join the rest of America in mourning the losses that we all suffered on the 11th of September 7 years ago, and that we join America in mourning the Americans lost that day. We join America in mourning the Muslims in the World Trade Center who died along with everyone else that day.
Do you believe Muslim American leaders have been outspoken enough in the intervening 7 years in terms of the Al-Qaeda portion of this and condemning the radical elements of at least those who say they are Muslims throughout the world?
I think a lot of leaders come on TV, on radio, and they publish a lot of pieces on in condemnation of extremist violence from any quarter. And what we tend to see as Muslims who are looking out for this type of thing is that the media cycle or the news cycle tends to focus more on unusual circumstances or violent actions, and far less attention is paid when imams or sheikhs or whoever go out into public and make these statements.
So they're there and they're saying it, you're saying?
The statements are being made.
Well, speaking of statements, a number that stunned me today, a worldwide poll was done of 16,000 people around the world, including many Muslims, I think in proportion to their representation in the world. And as you see here, more than 50% of the people worldwide rejected the belief that attacks on the World Trade Center were carried out by Al-Qaeda. And by the way, in some majority Muslim nations, the number was almost as close to 60%. Wow. Is that part of Muslim America, or is that not the way it's seen here?
I think it's very important also to emphasize that Muslim Americans are Americans. You know, that By
the way, there are about a third of Americans who believe the World Trade Center, that President Bush had something to do with the World Trade Center, right. Muslims and not. But I'm asking about amongst those who are Muslims and Americans.
Sure.
Is there any of this sentiment?
I think amongst, I wouldn't say that it's greater than the general population of non-Muslims by any stretch, but I think it's important to also acknowledge that Muslims and non-Muslims in this country and abroad are facing a sort of distrust of the American government, where is torture happening, is it not happening, what's the definition, is extraordinary rendition happening? And the government has flip-flopped on where they stand so much that trusting that stance is difficult for a lot of people.
Speaking of trust, how have you, I mean generically, I don't mean the individual you, how have Muslims in America been treated, as I know it's hard to generalize, since September 11th? There was a ton of suspicion post 9/11. There was a lot of profiling by individuals. I don't mean by the government or the TSA or whatever it was called at that point. How are things today, 7 years out?
I think that on an individual basis, interacting with the general population, that status quo, that there's a lot of sort of ambivalence. People aren't sure how to feel. They're hearing a lot of negative stuff on the media, but it doesn't necessarily manifest itself negatively for too many people. Where it has impacted us is in the realm of civil liberties, where we come in and the government is now treating large swaths of people completely differently.
I only have 15 seconds left. Clearly, virtually every Muslim American with whom I've spoken said Barack Obama is more understanding of and sympathetic to the Muslim issues than is John McCain. However, anytime Barack Obama's in a setting where he's asked about potentially being a Muslim, or if he runs as fast as he can, not just to correct the facts, at least as I see it, but to say, don't worry. He doesn't say these words, but the impression you get, don't worry, I'm not one of them. Is he creating a problem? The guy who many see as a hero in this issue, is he creating a problem for you?
I think the problem existed independent of him, and that he has perhaps no choice, or perhaps very little choice.
Do you bristle when you hear him say those kind of things?
I bristle when I hear anyone say those kinds of things, but I think he does his part in correcting the problem itself, that there's nothing wrong with being a Muslim, he just happens not to be one, and that's a very reasonable stance to take.
On that point, thank you so much for being here. NECN, I appreciate it. We'll see you again soon. Coming up, Survivors Found, a poet's tribute to the heroes of 9/11.